back to the channel. We're going to do another rifle cartridge review today on the 284 Winchester. I've talked a lot about the 284 Winchester on my channel, but never done a proper review, so we're going to do that today. So I was on a live stream the other night with Reloading Weatherby, and he asked me what I thought the most underrated cartridge was, and I said the 284 Winchester. Now, it's not really a relevant cartridge today in a lot of fields, so it might not have been the best answer. But generally speaking, you know, in the history of rifle cartridges, I think it's the most underrated. So in 1963, Winchester wanted to come out with a short action cartridge that would be the ballistic equal to the 280 or the 270. Both those cartridges are based off the 30-06 case in a long action. They toyed with the idea of taking the 308 case and necking it down to, say, 27 caliber or something like that, but they didn't quite get the velocity that they wanted. So they ended up creating a brand new case. The 284 Winchester has no parent. It is a brand new conceptual design. It is very similar to an Ackley improved case. So if you know anything about Ackley improved, they take out the taper in the sidewalls and give it a 40-degree shoulder angle. Now the 284 has a 35-degree shoulder angle, which, to the best of my knowledge, and I tried to look this up before I did this review, and there could be another 35-degree shoulder angle cartridge before it, but I don't think so. I think the first cartridge that was commercially standardized with a 35-degree shoulder angle was the 284. Now later, all the WSMs would all have that. It's also the first cartridge with a rebated rim. All that means is the head where the rim is on the cartridge is smaller than what the exterior part of the case walls itself is. And in my opinion, that really doesn't hinder it, help it, hurt it, nothing. It's just a design characteristic. But that is nice that it has the same head diameter, say a 30-06, 22-250, 308, and so it's all .473. This cartridge has some taper in the walls, but very little. 35-degree shoulder angle, and will fit in a short action. Winchester's plan with this cartridge was to put it in their Model 100 semi-automatic rifle and their Model 88 lever action rifles. At the time, they did not make a Model 70 in a short action. This cartridge did meet its goals. It basically got the same velocity as the 280 Remington or the 270 Winchester in a short action, and it holds about the same powder. I think the 280 Remington or the 270 holds a little bit more case capacity potential, but it's very close. But it was a success. I believe the only other manufacturer that I know of that ever chambered for it was Savage in their Model 99 rifles. So this is kind of a tragic story. It's a phenomenal design, brand new design with no parent, achieved its goals, yet never really took off. And here's the reasons why. If you wanted an awesome 7mm hunting round, the year before, Remington had come out with a 7mm Remington Magnum in their brand new Model 700, which was very popular. Around the same time, within that same year that Winchester came out with the 284, they kind of made some bad choices and cheapened the actions of their Model 94 lever action and their Model 70 bolt action, and everything made after 1963 kind of had a bad reputation. It's not that those rifles were bad, because they were still awesome rifles, but everyone preferred the pre-64. So it just wasn't really a great time for Winchester. It was a great time for the 7 mag and for Remington. And then, even though the 284 accomplished its mission in giving you 280 performance in a short action, the potential of that cartridge was much more had it been in a bolt action rifle. But it never really caught on, and it kind of died away. Now, immediately, of course, wildcatters realized the potential of this round and started to neck it up, neck it down, and created a lot of cool cartridges. And we'll talk about some of its offspring later. And then also, people that was building custom rifles realized, you know, a Mauser 98 action, for instance, is kind of an intermediate length action, and it would be perfect for that 284. The only real downside, in my opinion, to the 284, and it's not a downside as in it hurts it, it's just all rifle actions are generally short, long, or magnum. And the 284 is right there in that middle ground. It's more like a medium action. And so it can fit in a short action, which is what it was designed for. But unless you're shooting very light bullets, you're going to be stuffing that bullet in pretty deep. And then it's a little short for a long action. However, in my opinion, it would be much better in a long action. Then you can get the heavier bullets and seat that bullet out. But no one really ever did this except for gunsmiths making custom rifles. And there definitely was people that wanted that 284 in a custom rifle. So then a man by the name of Melvin Forbes created the Ultralight Arms Company and started to chamber the 284 Winchester in that ultralight arms rifle. And it was a pretty good hit. A lot of people bought them, a lot of gun writers bought them and used them, and it was a match made in heaven. It really was a great hunting cartridge. People hunted it all throughout the West, all up into Canada and Alaska. It was great for goats and you know, in the prairies and the mountains. It just really was a great all-around rifle. And as time went on, gun writers started to write articles about how, in all their research, the 284 happened to be one of the most underrated cartridges. That when you're looking at what the books, the reloading manuals tell you you're going to get, the 284 is one of the most underrated. In fact, you're usually always going to get a lot more out of it. You'll get more out of that 284 compared to what the book says than almost any other cartridge. And many, many decades ago, my two uncles heard about that, and one of them built a custom 284, which he killed a lot of animals with. I shot that gun. He actually sold that one, built another 284, and I have shot that one as well. And he found that to be true. He's got much more velocity out of that cartridge than what the books say. Now, when that original patent was filed, the max pressure was 56,000. And like I said, it was stuffed into a short action. So I'm not saying don't go by what the max pressure is, but I'm telling you that that's a strong cartridge. It's capable of more. And when you have enough room and you seat the bullet out, you can definitely get a lot better performance out of it. And a Mauser 98, for instance, is an intermediate length action, and it works perfect for it. But if you even get a long action, you can get great things out of it. The 284 is, in my opinion, the first short mag. So you look at all the short action ultra mags that Remington made, you look at some of the shorter Lazzaroni cartridges, you look at the Winchester short magnum cartridges, even up to our modern day with the 6.8 Western and the 6.5 PRC. These are all what I would call short mags. But the original, in my opinion, was that 284 Winchester. Once again, first cartridge with a rebated rim, first cartridge with a 35-degree shoulder angle, as far as I know. And so it really was ahead of its time, like maybe 50 years ahead of its time. It really, really was underrated and underutilized by even Winchester. So it's because of wildcatters and hand loaders that it's become very popular. Now, its lineage is pretty good. So the 6.5 284 was its most popular wildcat, which I've talked about before. It went on to break records at long-range target shooting. It currently is the most popular of its wildcats, and it is standardized, and you can buy a rifle in it today, which you can't in a 284. The 450 Bushmaster is based on the 284. The 6.5 Weatherby RPM and now the 338 Weatherby RPM are based on the 284, lengthened and also, changed the neck size and the caliber size. So it's had some pretty good offspring, but in recent years it's actually starting to make a comeback in the long-range target shooting realm. So in F class it's become very popular. So in recent years the 284 has started to make a comeback. It's coming back. I'm excited. But it's not so much in the hunting realm, it's in the long-range target shooting realm. In fact, a lot of people that loved the 6.5 284 have migrated toward the 284, which has a little bit longer barrel life. And people are generally shooting 180 to 190 grain VLD bullets, and they're having custom guns made with a 1 in 8 twist, something like that. And they're having tremendous success. And there's also some slightly different Wildcats based on the 284 with just little tweaks and stuff. But basically the 284 or any of its little Wildcats that are very similar to it are very popular in F-class in the year 2022. So it's making a comeback. It's so popular that a couple of years ago, Lapua, or Lapu, however you want to say it, started making cases for it. And what people had to do was take a 6.5 284 Lapua case and just neck it up. But now they make actual cases for the 284. People are buying those outstanding Lapua cases, 190 grain Burger VLD, the hybrids, or the Hornady version of that, or the Sierra Match King. There's quite a few there. And they're having tremendous success at long range. And it's really cool to see this happening. So I'm rooting for it. I want to see a comeback. The field is so crowded in the hunting realm, and the 284's old nemesis, its old arch enemy is still there. The 7 mag is still there and still kind of dominating. And then now you have a new cartridge coming out, the 7 PRC, and of course you've got some really cool cartridges that I love, the 7mm 08, the 280 Ackley improved. So it's a pretty crowded field. I don't know that it'll ever come back. And speaking of those cartridges, when I did my best all-around rifle cartridge series, I talked about the 284, but I never gave it the consideration I probably should have because it wasn't relevant. And also when I called the 280 Ackley improved the perfect rifle cartridge, the 284 has something to say about that. I'm not saying it's better, but I once again excluded it because of its relevancy, but it's right up there with them. So I hope it does. I don't know that it will, but I'm really glad to see it make a comeback in the long-range target shooting world. I want to give you just a few numbers here real quick before I let you go. I've got the 7mm 08, the 284 Winchester, 280 Ackley improved, 7mm SAUM, 7mm WISM, the 7mm PRC, hasn't came out yet, but this is what I think it'll do. 7mm rim mag and the 28 Nosler. In using the same bullet, 162 grain ELDX bullet, and this would be with the same barrel length, okay, 24-inch barrel length across the board. And I've adjusted my numbers. If books said, this cartridge should have 26 inches, then I would take maybe 50 feet per second off. If it said it should have 22, then I've bumped it up, to gain 50 feet per second, trying to balance it out the best I can. So keep in mind, barrel length would be a variable here, but just all things being equal, your 7mm would have 2,700 feet per second, 284, 28, 280 AI, around 29, 2950, 7 SAUM, 29, 7 WSM, around 3,050, your 7mm PRC, 3,000, about the same, your 7 mag, around 3,000 as well. Your 28 Nosler probably around 3,300 feet per second. So same bullet, maxed out case capacity, try to have the same type of powder. You're going to get pretty close. Your 280 AI, your SAUM, your WSM, your PRC, and your rim mag are going to all be very similar. There's going to be a little bit of a difference there, but very similar. WSM probably having the slight edge on velocity, but all of them being very close. And your 284 is just going to be just behind it. Maybe 50 feet per second, maybe 100 feet per second less than those, okay? And of course, 28 Nosler's on the high end, your 7mm 08's on the low end, but all very close. So it's right there with all them other cartridges, and it's very similar. However, it's going to hold 62 grains of case capacity compared to 65 for the AI, 69.2 for the SAUM, 74 for the WSM, I'm going to say 70 for the PRC, over 80, probably 80.4, something like that for the rim mag, and then 92 for the Nosler. So it's going to get almost the same velocity, but yet a lot less powder. The only one close to that is the 280 AI. You know, it's also very efficient. But of all those, it's nipping on its heels with the velocity, but yet has less powder. The 708, of course, is only using 47.6 grains to get 2,700, so it is the most efficient. However, that is with a max overall length of 2.8 inches. And that's the thing you got to understand, is that you can seat that bullet out if you have the right action and magazine to do that, and the pressure rating is a little bit light. So I'm fairly certain that 50 to 100 feet per second that it's behind those other cartridges, it could easily make up with by hand loading. So in my opinion, it's right there with the 280 AI, the 7 SAUM, and the 7 PRC, more than likely. It's going to basically do the same on velocity with less powder being used. It won't quite meet the 7 WSM, but it'll be close. It won't quite meet the 7 rim mag, but it'll be close. It's not really in the same league as the 28 Nosler, but it's going to have way less recoil than what the 28 Nosler has. And even though it's not as efficient as the 7mm 08, it's still very efficient, as I just explained, but it's a definite step up from the 08. Probably, after you hand load it, probably 200 feet per second faster. I'm a huge fan of some of these other cartridges that I mentioned, and I'm still happy with saying 7mm 08 is the best all around. I'm still happy with saying the 280 actually improves the perfect rifle cartridge. But if the 284 ever made a comeback, it would definitely have something to say about that. I think it's a cool cartridge, has a cool lineage, cool history. It just never caught on, but I'm excited to see its comeback. So I'd like to know if you have any experience with it. You ever shot it? You ever reloaded for it? You ever read about it? What's your opinion? Hopefully you've enjoyed this. I hope you have a wonderful day. Until next time, take care.